If we don't strike at the heart of the lies, we're going to be in this cycle until they have completely finished off every Palestinian. It wasn't enough for them to kill, what, 100, 150,000? We've lost track of count because there's bodies still underneath the rubble. And that's what I got to show you now. Like the madness of it, the sheer sickness of it, and America's complicity with it. America's complicity with it knows no bounds. I want you to take a look at this. This is what Gaza looks like right now. Not all the bodies haven't all been cleared. This is Gaza right now. Completely level, raised. The beheaded baby story helped do this. The beheaded baby's story helped do this. Let me say the beheaded baby's propaganda did this. And now it's to the point where this cat, Benjamin Netanyahu, he has been given the green light so much so that he can come to the United States of America. And despite the USAID report last week that said that there was no systemic theft of aid by Hamas, the report just came out July 2025. Despite that, despite the international community up in arms about the starvation photos that we're seeing, despite that, here he is this week in the United States of America on Fox News giving a glowing interview, a softball interview. Why? Well, one, because the United States of America has decided it's willing to go to hell. It is willing to go all the way to hell for Israel's Zionist. And two, because, well, in New York Times, in the New York Square, or Times Square in New York City, right now is a big poster of the hostage, Evyatar David. And so now Netanyahu can come on Fox News and talk like this.
Basically eliminated the entire population of Gaza, but we went the other direction. Basically, as Ambassador Huckabee said, if we're practicing genocide, we're surely doing a very bad job of it, because we could have, basically eliminated the entire population of Gaza, but we went the other direction. We did something that no army in history ever did. We're supplying humanitarian food to the enemy's population because we distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. We put in 2 million tons of food. I mean, if we wanted to commit genocide, we wouldn't give 2 million tons of food to the population. And also the reason you see the flattened buildings is because Hamas booby traps every single building. So when we come in, we first have the population moved, even though Hamas tries to keep them in the combat zones. But after they move, and we start to move into the neighborhoods that are now populated only by terrorists, they ignite these booby traps. So what we do is we put in an APC, an armored personnel carrier, with
y'all, the reason these buildings are flattened, mind you, the reason Gaza looks like this right now is because Hamas booby trapped every single one of these buildings. That's a whole hell of a lot of booby traps. Here's a problem. They're not done yet. Regimes are never done. They are never done with their violence. They are never done with needing to eradicate a population in order to achieve their settler colonial desires. And we as a people, no matter what nation it is, we as a body politic, we always get tripped up by their propaganda. We always get neutralized and don't know how to stop it, how to even confront it, how to even recognize it. And then they run the same play all over again. I'm not sure what loud noises you all are hearing on your side, but if it continues, please let me know. We are always tripped up because you're going to have a population of people. There's another one. My goodness, these people know their depravity knows no end. The New York Times story. Let me bring that up on your screen. The New York Times story. On the cover page, you had this young child along with his mother holding him in his arms. The name of the young child is Muhammad Zakari al-Mutawak. And the headline read, "Young, old, and sick starved to death in Gaza." It's an 18-month-old baby. Later, well, there's a caption underneath it that said, this described him as a born healthy but suffering from severe malnutrition. Later on, it was clarified by the New York Times that the child had a pre-existing condition, something, I believe, a genetic disorder. They didn't say specifically what it was, but some people are saying that it was cerebral palsy. So the New York Times had to correct the subtitle because the subtitle described him as being born healthy, but the child was not born healthy. The child was born with cerebral palsy. As a result of that, many critics are saying that the New York Times depiction was misleading, suggesting that only children that were healthy beforehand were starving. And they started saying that the New York Times misrepresented the crisis. Let me contextualize it for some of you who may not have gotten it yet, what's going on here. Do you remember at the beginning of COVID when all of the so many people were dying? I mean, I think we had hit 100,000 people in the first couple of months of COVID. And one of the arguments that the news ran with, not just the news, but a lot of MAGA ran with, and a lot of anti-vaxxers ran with, was that they died of pre-existing conditions. They had a pre-existing condition. Because they had a pre-existing condition, they couldn't die of COVID-19. You all remember that? Same exact argument is being made right now. They're saying because this child had pre-existing conditions that he couldn't really actually be starving to death, that the starvation was secondary to his pre-existing condition, which they say is likely cerebral palsy. Now, it's one thing to say it, but it's a whole nother thing to have that become the prevailing narrative. The prevailing narrative this week, right now, today, is that the New York Times ran propaganda for Hamas and put a baby up there that wasn't really starving, but was suffering from cerebral palsy. And then they went one step further and said, hey, look, there's no starvation. The New York Times is lying. Look at that. And you know what? That was enough for millions of Americans to say, oh, so there really is no starvation. I laugh for not crying. I laugh for not being able to get my hands on some of these people. It's gone even further. I don't know if I have this clip. I'll see if I can find it and talk to you at the same time. Benjamin Netanyahu is so confident in their lies and their propaganda that he's talking about suing the New York Times. Did you hear that? So now they're saying because the New York Times put a starving child who happened to have cerebral palsy on the cover. Here, listen to this. I have that. I think I have that on mute still. Hang on. One more time. There we go.
The New York Times, and I'm looking into it right now.
Won't you listen one more time? Here we go.
Unfortunately, the New York Times and other New York Times should be sued. I'm actually looking at whether a country can sue the New York Times, and I'm looking into it right now because I think it's such clear defamation. I mean, you put a picture of a child that's supposed to then represent all these supposedly starving children, yet they put in this picture of a child who has cerebral palsy. Then they took another picture somewhere else in other media, a child who had cystic fibrosis, got nothing to do with starvation, or another child that we actually sent to Italy to be cured. And Israel is accused.
But still, you can see there is suffering on behalf of people
suffering
in Gaza.
Yes, because Hamas is interdicting aid, exactly. And what we're doing is overcoming it. I don't deny that there's suffering. I want to end the suffering. And I want to end it by ending Hamas rule. Would you like to?
Here's the aid.
والله يا اخوان بخرج على قصر حجمتكم عام مفرومه يخلف على اللي جابوا خسر والله مطمنه طعام ويخلف على الاخ ابو بكر بعت لنا
fresh fruit
بعت لنا مانجا وبلح وموز الاخ ابو بكر وحلا من عندهم
fresh meat.
مرت هانا ابو دقه بعت لنا.
One translation says that they were bragging about having ice, and fresh fruit and fresh meat coming in aid packages. How dumb do they think we are? Well, unfortunately, if I'm gonna keep it 100, I don't think that we're dumb. I think that we're terrified of challenging the prevailing narrative. We're terrified of challenging the prevailing narrative. We hear the government tell us lies every time they want to get into a war. I can't think of a war. Can anyone think of a war that wasn't predicated on a lie? Every genocide. What's amazing, what's fascinating to me is the fact that the Jewish people suffering their own genocide, their own Holocaust at the hands of the Nazis. And what was it, the Reichstag fire? The lie, the propaganda, the false flag that was used to begin the entire process. And it seems to me that there are Zionists who looked at that model and said, we can do the same thing. Rwanda, same lies, same structured lies. Afghanistan, Iraq, same lies. The first Iraq, not just Gulf 1, but Gulf 2 and Gulf 1. Lies. So when they have the confidence to get on television and tell you lies straight to your face, it's because they have such a good track record of getting it accomplished. And we don't have the capabilities. It's one thing to not be able to stop the lies, which I believe most of us are genuinely in that position. We can see the lie, and then we can't do anything about it because we don't have power, we don't have platform, we don't have the prestige, we don't have the backing to actually change. That's one thing. But I don't think that's what's stopping us so much as the fact that we don't even confront the lies. And as much as we know that we should not trust the government, what government? Any government. What do? As soon as they give us a narrative, we buy into it. You know, we find some creative ways of fighting against it. You know, I've seen a lot of people respond to the starvation videos and they're saying, well, there's a whole lot of Palestinians who are starving. That's right. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. But that's not how you approach that lie. Or you look at the evidence and you study the evidence and you realize it's impossible for Hamas to have a media militant team that can survive 22 months of bombardment and produce professional documentaries. But we all accepted the lie. I'm not saying that Eviatar David and Ram Brzezowski, I wouldn't dare. I'm not going to say that they are false flags, that they are agents of Mossad or the IDF. Nope. They very well could be experiencing what they're experiencing. But what I am saying, the people who produced that video aren't Hamas. They're not. And that matters. Why does that matter? Because we've been lied to yet again. And here we are with the new round of the beheaded baby story. A fresh new round of outrage that you notice. Here's another thing. They will never allow you to have grief and mourn on behalf of people starving on your side. Yet they've got the whole world grieving and mourning on behalf of these highly produced videos that are now being displayed, not the highly produced version, right? The webcam version, the cell phone footage version. That's the one that's being displayed all over Times Square. But we can't look at that child on the cover of the New York Times and mourn for that child. Why? Because they have to maintain a duality where they can grieve every single detail and you can't grieve or mourn at all.